for those of you, in case like anyone hasn't read it, I did want to give like a quick little like plot overview. So the Spellshop is pretty much like a like cottagecore cozy fantasy, and it follows the main character Keela and her sentient spider plant Kaz as they're kind of driven out of their home of the capital library, where like all of the magic knowledge is kept and everything. And because there's a revolution going on, there's like a war, and they literally start burning the library down, and that's where she like lives and works. So she like quickly grabs everything she can, and she has to like sail out of the capital, and she ends up heading to her hometown island that's like very far fetched. It's like a really small island out of the way that not a lot of people have heard of, and she has to go and kind of make a living and rebuild her life and redo everything that she's like built her life upon. Obviously there's no like huge libraries. It's a really tiny town, and in her memory she remembers it being kind of like, it was always small, but it was thriving in her like childhood. But when she goes back, it's really run down, and like you can tell that it has a lot of like people are just not as like positive, and there's not like, the economy is clearly not booming, and there's a lot of like environmental issues going on as well. And so she kind of just has to find a way to like make a living, start making money so she can eat, and at the same time she kind of wants to rebuild the island to what she remembers it being. So to do that, she finds a recipe that her parents left behind for jam, and no one's selling jam, so she uses like spells from the spell books to grow berries, and then she makes jam, and she has like a jam business and she sells jam, but as like a secret undercover business, she's is also selling home remedies, which are spells. But spells are illegal unless you're like a professional sorcerer. So, you know, she's not supposed to be having like these books. She like took a whole bunch of books from the library, and she she creates little remedies to help like trees grow and like the environment get better, and all this other like the small things that just are to help her neighbors basically. But it is illegal, and she's not supposed to be doing it, so it's all a secret. And she keeps telling everyone that they're not spells, they're just secret family remedies is what she calls them. And yeah, that's basically the plot of the book. You love the very logical choice to create a jam shop. No other choice, clearly. It was certainly a decision. It's like brought up in the book about how could you possibly be making enough money off of jam? And they pointed out as like, obviously there's some sort of underground business going on, because what do you mean you're selling one jam flavor and living off of it? So my overall impressions of the Spellshop, and I'm really curious to see how you guys enjoyed it, but I absolutely loved it. It was like genuinely one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I don't know if it's one of the best books that I've read this year, but it was definitely one of my favorites. I really enjoyed the writing, the prose. I enjoyed Keela's character development. And then I did have a couple things that I would have changed, but I'm gonna get back into that later. So, I mean, obviously no book is perfect, but I really enjoyed it. I was worried that I wasn't going to be like entertained enough because it's like so slow, like very slow living, but I was like, it was like perfect Studio Ghibli movie vibes. I felt like I was reading a Studio Ghibli movie, and it made me so happy like reading it, and cozy, and I was like, I should open a jam shop. I need to stop streaming, and I need to get offline, and I need to make jam and sell it just like the Amish. Yeah, all the characters are super nice except for that one old man. I literally don't remember his name. It started with an F. It was like Ferrer. But he was so unnecessarily rude. Like, he was like the perfect description of a boomer who just like, get off my lawn. Kaz is definitely your favorite character. He is a really good character. He was so cute. Just an anxious little spider plant who's like also very smart. He was so like, always knew what to do. And like, I hate when the side characters are just like, are really dumb and don't know what to do. And like, just have to wait for the main character to tell them. Like no thoughts, head empty. But he was so smart and he kept like planning ahead for like when they had to hide things or like when people came to visit unexpectedly. He just always knew what to do. He was a very likable side character. I also thought that the magic system was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was like revolutionary to me. I think I've had some other ones that like I wouldn't say it was my favorite magic system, but it is one of the good ones, I think. You know, like sometimes where the magic just doesn't make sense. But this one is like very clearly like, okay, there's a spell book, you follow the spells, blah, 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 blah. The only thing I didn't understand was like, it like had warnings when she was reading the spell book that, like if you didn't handle it correctly, like the balance of nature could be upset. And I was like really worried that that was gonna come back to bite her, but it just seemed like only like small, minor inconveniences would happen more than like upsetting the balance of nature, thankfully. What was my favorite spell? The one where she like heals the mermaid baby and the mer horse from the storm sickness. That was my favorite spell. And I feel like it provided like the most like satisfaction because it was such high stakes. You didn't realize she had blue skin until halfway in? That's crazy. They definitely mentioned it like late. Like normally they would like describe the character in a book very early on, but I feel like they didn't mention her blue skin until like 6 or 7 chapters in, like definitely a bit. I don't think they ever explained Lauren either, the main male character. I kept waiting for like his explanation for what he looks like, and I don't think they ever mentioned it. If you guys noticed it, please let me know because I have no idea what he's looking like. He looks handsome. Yeah, that's basically all they said. They were Lauren's very handsome and he has nice eyes. That's what I recall them describing him as. Lauren's only description was like, very colorful eyes and lots of muscles. Very sexy, very cool. Very kind. He is very kind. He's like one of the most kind. I read a lot of enemies to lovers books and he was so kind from the beginning and I was like, you know what? Maybe enemies to lovers isn't all there is in the world because I loved him. He was so nice. And a smile that made him so sexy. She wanted him so bad. Okay, and then I wanted to talk about some of my favorite moments in the book. I think one of my favorite, like, parts is, like, right when she, it's, like, the morning after she lands on the island, and she basically determines that she has no choice but to go into town. Because, you know, originally, she was just gonna lay low and try to not even talk to anyone, but she very quickly realizes that she needed supplies and that she kind of had to go into town. So I really love the moment where she starts walking to town and she's like up on the like a giant like hill or cliff or something, and she's looking out and she can see like the town below and the ocean, and they were describing it and it sounded so beautiful, and I was like, I wish I could see it. Like, it sounded so pretty, and I want to go to there. I want to go to there is how I felt. I do want that life. It sounded so beautiful. So that was definitely like a moment, and that was like a moment where she was like, I remember she was like, you know, maybe this won't be so bad. Like, she kind of had a moment there to herself, obviously. The author made it very impactful. So You love the chimney scene? That part was really funny. I don't remember what the exact problem was, but for some reason her like chimney was blocked and she like turned on her stove, and so instead of the smoke going outside of her house, it just started like filling up her little cottage. And like she panicked and had to like run out of the house, and Lauren had to come save her. And she was also really confused because she was like, why are you here saving me? And he was like, I'm just being kind. And she did not understand. She was like, I've never once experienced kindness in my life. But he really is just kind. I like the scene where she got wet and had to wear Lauren's clothes. That was a good scene. She was like, I'm just gonna put on the shirt, but surely he won't care that I'm not wearing pants because everything's covered. And then he was instantly like, blush, Keela, your legs. And then she was like, surely he's not interested in me. That could never be why he's blushing and looking away. That's definitely not it. So dense. This was pretty much my only issue with the book, is that the side characters didn't have as much development as Keela. I wanted to discuss some of the themes from the book. I think the really big overarching one is being able to start over and embracing change in your life. Of course, things aren't always going to stay the same, and as sad as it is, like, things are always going to change. Like, what situation you're in now isn't always going to be true, even if you're like completely happy with your current life, and that's not always a bad thing. Okay, another theme is that really came to like a head at the end was doing what's right versus what's legal. And I feel like this is a really modern issue. Well, not even, it's a timeless issue rather. Like something that is very common today, but also like it's very applicable, I feel like. And you know, that's told by the like government officials come and they're like, you're doing spells, and she's like, yeah, maybe, but this island was dying and now it's not, and we're not hurting anyone. You could delve really deep into that one, I think, a lot, because it's easier, of course, to follow the law, but when you're just trying to save your little islandy hometown out from the middle of nowhere, of course you need to do what's right. Like, and you know, she grapples with this a lot herself in the beginning. She's always like, well, I have all these spell books, I really shouldn't have them, but they would have burned otherwise, so of course I had to save them. Like, it's knowledge. Next up, there's like also like the protection of nature, because like she's kind of, you know, once she starts using spells, it's to be able to restart the like ecosystem kind of in Caltree, because she starts spells to like rehabilitate trees and to make it so that like the creatures are able to like healthily give birth again, and just like making the ecosystem better. And you know, there's like the surface level of like, yeah, her island is really run down at this point because why, right? Why is it so run down? And you find out it's because in the capital they're doing all of these crazy spells all willy-nilly, and this is where like the negative side effects of magic come in, because they're doing all these grand magic spells in the capital, and the capital's fine, right? They have so many sorcerers there that are able to deal with the effects, but the effects of the spells are, you know, outcasting to the outer islands, and that's what's creating like these crazy storms and destroying like the soil and making life really hard on all the citizens that basically don't have money. And so they're upsetting not only like nature itself, but like the balance of nature, right? So, of course, then you can go back into what's right versus what's legal, because sure, what the Capitol's doing is legal, but that can't be right, can it? And then the last like little theme that I picked up on was the hoarding versus the preservation of knowledge, because she works in the library, and this is all knowledge that only, like, you have to be cleared basically to be able to read like these spell books. And even if you read them, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can do the spells. Like, she had access to a certain part of the library, but she herself wasn't allowed to do any magic. And what the revolution was doing was they were basically like, knowledge should go to everyone, and not just the like people who have money should be able to decide who can and can't read these books, right? And the nobles and the higher levels kept saying, oh, it's for everyone's protection, blah blah blah, but then they abandoned the people that needed the magic, like in the outer islands. They just abandoned them. And so you can kind of see that although the revolution, it was messy, right? Like, they burned down a library, they displaced a lot of people, a lot of people died, but then obviously the old form of government wasn't good. And I think that's what, you know, that's what revolution is. It's messy, and you can't just, it's not black and white, right? The themes in this book, it's a very soft cottagecore cozy fantasy, but the themes go kind of crazy, I think. If there were to be another book, if there was to be a sequel, I don't think there's any plans for it to be. It seems like the story was really wrapped up nicely, and honestly, I like it as a standalone. But if there was another one, what would you guys like to like see more of, or for them to delve into more? I would really, personally, I would love to see how like the economics of it all works, like maybe trading with other islands and like getting the stability of other islands, because if Kaltri is like all messed up, surely other local islands are as well. So I'm like, I wonder if she would like travel to other islands to like teach them the spells, or like trade the spells for like money. All right, and then finally, my overall review. So this is the review that I wrote for Goodreads. So this book originally drew me in because I fell in love with the cover at the bookstore. After reading the description, I was a little worried it wouldn't be to my taste. I typically gravitate towards action-packed adventure books, and while this clearly has the fantasy elements that I love, I thought I may find it boring with its slow seaside slice of life. This couldn't have been further from the truth. I found this to be one of my favorite reads this year, and it had me longing for a life I wish I could experience. The kindness and camaraderie found in the small town of Kaltri was sweet and showed the positives in living in a slow life. The characters were a welcome reprieve from real life as they took Keela in and showed her what it meant to have a family again. I would wholeheartedly recommend this book, and it has definitely opened me up to a new subgenre as I wish to dive into other similar stories. I did give this book 5 stars, so obviously I really recommend it, and if anyone here hasn't read it yet, I definitely think it's worth the read. Alright, well, I hope you guys had fun. Thank you all for coming.